safer here.
Yes, over here. So
So yeah, Cofield. His house is there.
No, Wesley College.
Right.
Same thing, but his parents. I'm the only guy that works in the class. I'm the only father that works in Scottish Army. I've got his 3 children, $100,000 a year, school fees, fishing wagons, Porsche, Aston Martins, Ferraris. I feel like, this is my car, don't look. Yeah. So yeah. But having said that, I feel that this is probably the last generation that will benefit from rapid growth.
Well, they are coming against some structural issues. I mean, I once heard, it's kind of an anecdotal thing, that China needs to have about 6 or 7% GDP growth.
Yeah.
If they don't, they start facing structural problems. Well, because of the growing of people coming, and they know that. Look at people mentioned the unemployment rate among young people. What are we going to do?
We're gonna, like you said, the GDP growth and local government tax is so high. All the expansion will come projects or infrastructure. Which is the neighborhood of the province from my hometown. Small cities have got 11 average. 11 average. 11. But then it also generates growth, right? Growth here, like you see, growth here. And it's a market town, it's a lot of mountain thing. The biggest suspension bridge in Asia. Here, like you see, growth here. What? I mean, it's another way around.
Bridge to nowhere.
It's another way around. That's why they built it in history. So now they're running out of money, and the local governments are not taking local claims. They establish now
Still, I don't think the domestic consumption is at a high level now to sustain China's growth. They really need export.
Yep.
And if as things are going at the moment, the West will continue to win itself off Chinese manufacturing. It's going to be a big problem.
The turning point is currently the moment that the Chinese president is going to take the world anyway. I think that's the finish. No return.
And he's still relatively young.
Him.
Relatively young now.
He's only got a primary school education.
He's cunning. He's cunning though. That may not be academically educated, but he's cunning. He's street smart.
And we don't think that's
And let's face it, he comes from sort of CPA.
Yes.
He's from Saudi Arabia, so royalty. I mean, his parents were high up, although I think his parents were purged.
Yes.
During Mao, so he kind of bears the grudge a little bit. Read.
Okay, yeah, good. Not Chinese.
No.
The tax stuff, no problem. Tax rates. The tax stuff, no problem. Tax rates. Politics. Shut down and shut
Oh, run away. I was born in communist country, and when I was born, Scotland was done. I was there during the sort of, solidarity years. I was told basically decided enough is enough, basically, when the country's out.
Yeah.
One is all over having the China, so we've got quite a few reasons.
Really long?
The ruins just stopped smoldering. Just.
别下边的。好的，谢谢。
可以吧？
可以。
然后等会儿那里会有话筒，你们坐在那儿的时候。
好的。
哦。
好，那边下边的，给他们来。
还有10分钟之后正式开始，请各位来宾尽快落座，大家可以
What time is it?
10 to.
10 to.
Mandarin?
What's that?
Mandarin or is it Mandarin?
It's orange.
Right?
Orange. It is Mandarin. Yes.
Mandarin.
10 to. You say?
I think it's
What's that?
Mandarin?
10 to. It's orange.
Yeah,
Okay, go. Never wear this till the battery runs out. I know the spring stops working.
That's true.
I mean, yeah, the automatic. I never wear it. So, thank you. First, from my first bucket of gold. 851. Yes, okay. 651. Okay.
How you feeling about it?
Feeling? 651. What do you mean?
How you feeling?
Feeling what?
About
Yeah,
The girls?
you okay? You happy? You
look slightly
you know,
stressed the way you
Oh no! It's just embarrassing having a watch
You need a
that's
slap on the face or something?
on the butt. It's just embarrassing having a watch. Yeah. Hi.
We'll swing it, guys. That's what we do.
We would do it. We'll rock it.
You're the one who came to prepare for with your
Doing some
dossier.
reading in the cab. Actually, this intergenerational report came out.
Intergeneration report.
Yeah, you know, like we do one every 10 years. The
Oh.
treasury comes of age. What's going to happen in Australia in 40 years?
Oh, okay. Oh.
So he's already softening the ground for more taxes in Australia, and like, we're going to be doing so much with the renewable energy. It's like, fuck, I'm listening to it, it's like a horror.
No.
Together, I'm not a believer in the renewable together.
You don't believe it? Because the batteries they can't be recycled, can they? Lithium.
Yeah, well, that's among other things. Let alone the cost, let alone the amount of minerals that we have to go into making these.
Yes.
Like,
So we're fucking up our own
in the
planet.
meantime, we've got nuclear energy coming out of the ground here, and we cannot actually talk about it. It's actually prohibited.
Do we have one?
Both Australia is the third largest
Uranium, is it?
Third largest deposit in the world. After Kazakhstan and Canada, we are the third one.
We can't use it.
Okay?
We can't build a nuclear power plant
Well, we
here.
cannot because we've got a political prohibition on it. See, there's actually enacted.
So if we build it if we build it inside the Uluru Rock, it's gonna kill the rock. Yeah, Uluru, that the fucking
There's all sorts of gun there.
Yes.
There's plenty of other places to build.
It's got to be on the list.
Yeah. But that'll be the. Yeah, okay. Cool. Yeah. But that'll be the.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. All right. More people coming. Okay. So keep the salespeople busy.
It's Mr. Kumpong.
What's that? So keep the salespeople busy.
Who's that?
That's introducing brokers. So this guy, I think he's from Malaysia or Thailand. He's like a partner. He uses our brand, but he expands the business there.
Not on the stage? Yes?
No. It's only you two and me. No. It's only you two and me.
You know what?
No. It's only you two and me.
You know what?
What do you think? You can go to the Aussie fella.
There are no silly answers. Oh, that one was pretty silly.
You can go to the Paul, that's Paul. This is Paul. Yes. This I see now. Why she's afraid of you? I see. Did you? This is Paul. Yes. This I see now. Because I think she mentioned something about being embarrassed about a number or something. Yes. Yes. It's embarrassed. You guys are working on the group work together, right? Day 3 or day 4, you're working on the auction thing.
Oh, yeah. Auction? No,
Yeah.
the sale.
The sale thing.
Yeah.
Yes, the sale thing. But then there's an auction afterwards. So they were working. They were working on this group project together in Harvard, and then.
That's how you know Tracy.
Yes.
She was there with us.
It was sitting like just.
This is the Harvard
then-
tour.
Yeah.
I just went to Melbourne, so sorry.
No. But then Tracy came up with a ridiculously high number. I think she said $600 million buying something. Everyone's like, we were like 300 mil or so. And she said 600 mil. And then she embarrassed herself, I think. But in front of the group, then that's why she felt that, probably best not to shop.
So I had to kind of like, I had to land with something like, 50 million profit was enough, was good.
Yeah.
She basically gave me 150. So
Ladies and gentlemen, our financial market research event will begin soon in 5 minutes. Please take your
5 minutes, no delay then.
for your cooperation.
I feel like
尊敬的各位来宾，我们本次开会论坛即将在5分钟后正式开始，请还在走动的各位来宾尽快落座，谢谢。
So after translation means stop eating. You peasants. After translation means stop eating. You peasants. And these two in the middle here, these two ladies in the first row.
average age about 40.
No, man, come.
Hey?
What was he doing?
I was looking at the audience and I'm
Oh,
thinking
average age.
age.
Okay, cool. I was talking about these two ladies at the front row. Then you said average age 40. So I thought you meant.
There's 2 young people, so overall I think
You said average age.
40.
That means it's a good group.
Yeah.
It's a good group. Yes, in terms of.
People who want to build wealth like that.
access to capital.
Yes, in terms of. For us. Yeah. For us. So we have.
How many women are in the audience?
Sorry?
So how many women are in the audience?
It's a
Do you
lot.
guys have like a demographic split that's like 50?
The women investors in this Chinese community is that the husbands are mostly overseas, still doing business, and the wives are here doing nothing.
I'm surprised Tracy didn't come. It's stupid.
It would have been a good option.
Absolutely.
Just a stupid.
I've never seen a financial demographic like this.
She actually spoke to me because she runs her own VC fund. So she says, can I talk? She didn't say, can I talk about VC fund?
Of course you can.
I said, you can talk about it in general. But if you're going to promote your own business here, you have to speak to Alan. Because we're funding the whole thing. And then she said, I'll think about it. You know, I mean, that doesn't really work out because it's... Yeah. But I mean, primarily, I think it's because the
Let's actually, in the meantime, approach you guys and say, is there something that we could do? You know, that we can channel the business via ethos to basically inject capital.
She wouldn't. She just basically go, no. You know, I was like,
share the love.
Share the love.
Would you rather have
Exactly.
60% of something or 100% of nothing?
Exactly. Or we can, you know, like we can do this thing together. We can make it work on the second one together. You know, just really.
马上一会儿要开始，然后你的麦已经是传在 YouTube 上了。
So this might be YouTube. I can see shit. But take a seat, guys.
好，给我弄个 VIP 的，好吧？太屌了啊！感谢。来，兄弟们，不敢做了。
VIP，我是这儿还是？哎，我这儿好的人，我相对方便。
今天是全民听了啊！
这是各地人，各不好的人，我相对方便。你好，这是各地人。
这个我
Justin， 这可以演说，Justin。
这个我
Justin， 这可以演说，Justin。
我们刚才吃饭就1个多。
哦，缘分，Justin 给我们这交易了很久。那只嗨了，那只嗨了吗？
昨天挺痛苦的啊。
对，前天挺好的，真的，前天应该挺好的。我手机搁这儿，你帮我看。无论谁来说，不要开户啊！
干什么？
不要开户啊！不要开户。
好。
啊，听见了？
尊敬的各位来宾，我们本次的这门会即将开始，请还在后面用餐的各位来宾尽快在前台落座，谢谢。然后我们VIP的来宾可以坐在这个前2排，谢谢。然后我们VIP的来宾可以坐在这个前2排。
喝口水去。
学习啊！听听大师的讲。
没，
高论宽，大事论剑。
那老爷子厉害。
老爷子，
会衣服的。
汇丰的吧？
他是 NAB 的。啊，汇丰是另外一个，汇丰是上那天讲话的，聊天。
他是 NAB 的那个。
对。
在后面用餐的来宾尽快落座，我们的本次活动将于1分钟后正式开始。
们都没有你们第一个人。
这是叫什么？领袖人物，领袖人物。
待会儿结束咱们才合影啊。
跟着你学习学习，体验体验这高端的啊，高端
挺高端的，真挺高端的。今天你是大明星哦。
被潜规则吗？
今天你是大明星，看你不是小辈能不能把这做了，这没录音，没录音。
大部分都是你们的客户。
我不是很清楚，我不负责，我不认识。
人家是专门研究的，做那种叫什么？
比如那个就是那个 client
没有能理解。我觉得这种论坛对公司来说，对
坐这个位置至少是确的你有那个meeting 上。
对，沾光了，沾光了。我
以后还有，以后还有。
你要是觉得不好意思，你就退着。沾光了，沾光了。
今天早上你女儿演讲，现在轮到你演讲了。
他昨天晚上9点半跟我说他紧张，要练一下。我说你要紧张什么？
领导，你女儿讲话讲得好。
谢谢。他昨晚9点半跟我说我要紧张，我说你怎么了？明天我要讲点东西。我说你讲什么都不告诉我。昨晚开始我给他练，把我累的我靠。
那你今天晚上面对1万人讲话啊？你跟他说，
吓我。
你告诉他，这个东西你就把他们当南瓜，对吧？传统说法南瓜嘛，是吧？啊。
等会儿下楼结束了可以自由活动。等下楼结束了可以自由活动。
我感觉这边华人基本上全部说中文，没见过什么鬼佬来人。
就他，哎，就，
你们老板来吗？
老板没在新加坡。
我也这种华山论剑型的，你老板得露个脸是吧？挣个面子。
这个还行，我们有一个更高的。
你老板得露个脸是吧？可以。
我是还行，一个更高的。朋友，这是一位土豪，这是一位土豪。朋友，这是一位土豪。
我们的开加油加油一个。
这边这右边这些都是商会的，
广东商会什么的，
广东啊，什么湖北啊，
商会其实也是蛮厉害的，蛮厉害的。商会其实也是蛮厉害的。别人不说，我这儿一看，我以为是在国内呢。
到此结束。
别人不说，我这儿一看，我以为是在国内呢。
到此结束。
他上来讲什么讲国际形势，然后不能来讲股市，是吧？上来讲开小孩，高山隐喻是吧？
然后如果说没有人保证什么，
没事，我肯定不这个，我肯定是冲锋的，知道吧？我听完就是说电梯张准，知道吧？非常准。
准备开始做实验。
先别说这个高傲的事情，主要是这个背出来的，都是市场。这把线。
尊敬的各位来宾，由于本次我们现场人数较多，所以活动7:15正式开始。然后请还在走动的各位来宾尽快落座。
这位老先生是，
好像是这个，好像是这个，啊，这个，好像是这个，好像是这个，啊，这个，好像是这个。但是有时候确实这个没有相应的背景，还是会有障碍。
我觉得有些东西是认知的障碍，你没办法用语言来形容。
给大家去填更多的位置，然后后面的同学们如果还在走动的话，可以去找自己的位置一起落座。
可能150左右，可能有150左右。
都是奔你来的。
没，奔你来的。
晚上看完。
我有点好奇啊，你们那放4只牛什么意思？是要出脚吗？
送的，对，送就达到什么标准，我不知道，销售上我不知道。
那是给销售人员吗？还是说
销售人员送给客户用，达到什么标准给送，应该是这个。
还在想呢，这实在看见了，像国内这种就是那个年会这种感觉。
没办法，就因为他们这个销售团队这一个团队对目标就是这样的客户。
人不能操作手法，不能也挺好吃，是吧？
对，它就是好吃。哎，我们的说法都是太土，好使吗？
那管这么多了，对吧？
那就管他，
老板脾气大了也是。
就是。
我觉得要是你做的话，你会放一堆 PS5，
哎，
对吧？
哎，年轻人必须，
对吧？啊，有道理。
是这样的，主要这样。
那要不整3块劳力士？
那你这个，那行，那得相当高的这个，是吧？
没事儿，礼物不再多，再给气氛更到位啊。
高净值，可以去去拼多多上买点。只要出个氛围。
广州鬼市逃出。
对，下飞机就带你3块200，打工回老家没钱没东西送父母，3块劳力士。
可以。其实我以前去广州去玩的时候，我挺想去那边鬼市去看看，有没有真的那种比较创意的那个劳力士。
金融论坛峰会将于2分钟后正式开始。请大家将手机调至静音模式，并且尽快落座，谢谢。
Head of Research and Analysis at Atos Capital Group. Tonight we gather here as a testament to the continuous growth and success of the thảo shared a new chapter by his name.
本次活动即将开始，请大家再次确认自己的手机调至静音模式，并尽快落座。谢谢。
Here we go. The fun parrot. The fun parrot.
Since its inception in Sydney in 2007, Atos has grown to be the leading global online trading services provider, extending its roots from Australia to reach over 100 countries and regions around the world. Through 16 years of dedication and innovation, Atos has risen above more than 3,000 industry peers to become one of the top 20 online trading services provider in the world. At Atos, we offer an all-in-one trading platform that enables global traders to access diversified derivative products, including forex, indices, metals, energies, shares, cryptos, and ETFs, and trade in global markets anytime, anywhere. At Atos, we value regulatory compliance and hold the 3 major licenses in the world, ensuring our commitment to providing fair, secure, and transparent trading services that adhere to regulatory requirements. At Atos, we understand that every client is unique, and we are committed to delivering tailored solutions with dedicated local teams across Australia, United Kingdom, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and more. We provide comprehensive services in multiple languages, ensuring that our clients receive the support they need. At Atos, we never stand still. We are committed to innovation and continuous improvement. By staying at the forefront of technological advancements, we deliver market-leading trading tools and support to help our clients stay ahead of the curve. At Atos, we understand that business success and social responsibility go hand in hand. That's why we have made it our mission to not only provide exceptional products and services, but also to make a positive impact on the communities we serve. Over the past 16 years, Atos has been recognized by the industry with over 50 top awards worldwide. We are proud of our achievements, and we will continue to push the boundaries and strive for excellence in all that we do. Achieving success is a journey, not a destination. Atos will always commit to leading the way with innovative tools and services for global clients.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nghiên, the Head of Research and Analysis here at Atos Capital Group. Tonight we gather here as a testament to the continuous growth and and the success of Atos Capital Group. We stand on the threshold of a new chapter, and this summit marks a significant milestone for the Atos Research and Analysis Department. I am honored to be standing before you tonight as a representative of Atos, and on behalf of our Sales and Marketing Director, Ms. Ellen Chi, and myself to extend a very warm welcome to everyone joining us tonight for the outlook of global markets in the second half of 2023. We are honored to have two special guests among us, both industry-leading financial experts who bring a wealth of expertise and insights to our summit. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished guests, Managing Director of APS Management Services, Mr. Paul Sokolowski, and Trading Specialist, Mr. Shan Walton. Welcome. I also want to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed partners from Atos Thailand and Malaysia, Dr. Pong and Mr. Chong. The strong bonds we share with you are a testament to the values of trust and unity that drive our collective success. And to our valued clients and friends from the Melbourne community, Chairman of Australian Chinese United Association Link, Australian Hubei Chamber of Commerce, Hubei Association of Australia, Ji Jianming先生 Chairman of Guangdong General Commercial Chamber of Australia, Guo Ziming 女士 and Managing Director of Focus International Media Group, Qin 女士 Thank you for your continued trust and support. Your trust has been the backbone of our growth, and we're immensely grateful for the opportunity to serve you. It would not have been possible without the support of our exclusive media partner of this event, also Focus International Media Group, and our marketing team whose dedication to sharing our journey has amplified our reach and impact. Thank you for being an integral part of our journey. Last but not least, a big welcome to everyone here tonight and our global audience joining us through live streaming. Now, as the head of research and analysis at Atos, it is my privilege to address you and reflect upon the achievements of our company. 60 years ago, we set sail from Sydney. Through numerous transformations and challenges, we have grown into a global comprehensive financial trading service group with multiple financial trading service licenses, operating 25 wholly owned offices across Australia, Europe, and Asia, serving investors over 100 countries and regions with an annual turnover exceeding trillions of dollars. In addition to more than 50 awards won globally, we were honored with the 2022 Hurun Best Online Broker Award by Hurun Report in Sydney, making us the first and only company in the global financial online trading industry to receive this prestigious recognition. This is not only a business Oscar level honor, but a high recognition from the industry for Atos' outstanding achievements over the past 60 years. Our name is derived from the Greek word for eagle. Atos embodies qualities of sharpness, fearlessness, and determination. Throughout our 60-year journey, we have consistently adhered to a principle of operating with integrity and compliance, upholding the values of fairness, efficiency, and intelligence. We understand the importance of meeting our clients' expectations and providing them with high-quality local service offerings, adhering to the core principles of fairness, efficiency, and intelligence that Atos has upheld for the past 60 years. Our research and analysis department has been devoted to making significant strides over the past year, creating numerous industry-first initiatives. Firstly, we boast a team of seasoned analysts from various global markets, tirelessly providing real-time market information to clients worldwide. Secondly, addressing the specific needs of the Australian local market, we continuously refine and enhance the quality and the uniqueness of our education program. Moreover, we pioneered the first one-on-one consultation service in Australia, earning widespread recognition and praise from countless local clients. Our team has forged a unique collaboration with the global media giant Thomson Reuters, providing weekly market insights to the esteemed organization. Notably, I am humbled to be the only industrial expert personally invited to join the Global Markets Forum by the London Stock Exchange Group. This has afforded me the opportunity to lend my voice to global market discussions and deliver the most authoritative, exclusive, and up-to-the-minute market intelligence to Atos traders worldwide. At Atos, we remain committed to pushing the boundaries, breaking new ground, and continuously innovating to serve our clients better. Our dedication to excellence and client-centric approach sets us apart, making Atos a true leader in the industry. Tonight, I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to all of our clients and the community for their unwavering support. Your trust and the confidence in our services have been the backbone of our growth. We remain committed to serving you with utmost dedication, providing you with tailored solutions that meet your financial goals and aspirations. Lastly, I would like to wish you all an enriching and enjoyable financial summit. May this event be an opportunity for networking, sharing insights, and fostering collaborative partnerships. Let us embrace the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead, confident in our abilities to deliver exceptional financial services and making a positive impact in the industry. Well, thank you all very much, and I wish you all a very wonderful and productive evening. Thank you all very much, and I wish you all a very Now, can I just ask for another round of applause, because it's time for our special guests to get on the stage tonight. Mr. Kost, Mr. Paul Spolowski, and Mr. Sean Watson. How are you, Paul? Good. Shane, how are you?
Good.
Thank you. Thank you. Shane, how are you? Thanks, Bonnie. Good. Thanks, Bonnie. All right. Testing. There's no sound.
What do we need these?
All right. Recording. Testing.
Clarity, I think. YouTube.
Testing. Okay, good. With when the green light is on. Testing.
Testing.
What's the green light?
Testing. Yeah, good.
It's good. Okay. We're going to explain to the clients that we're going to be translating parts of the discussion. Okay. Let's roll it. Let's roll it. Well, welcome. Long time no see. How are we doing? Let's roll it. Well, welcome. Long time no see.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
It's great to see you guys here. And before we started, I'd like to say very briefly， 各位，因为我们的翻译软件有一点点小问题啊，所以今天我们的这个在对话的过程中，各位如果有问题的话，可以写到你那个袋子里面的纸上，然后呢，举手示意我们周围的工作人员，他们可以去帮您把这个问题拿过来，然后可以交到我这边，我可以带大家转问两位嘉宾把问题拿过来，然后在每一个问题的结束的地方，我会向大家总结一下每个环节大家说的是什么，然后感兴趣您可以记下来，然后最后跟我们一起讨论。Okay. So first of all, unfortunately, that Tracy is unable to make it tonight. She's apparently going to. She's stuck in the United States. She's in California. They're definitely pushing through a bill over there for female leaders. So 我们今天很遗憾的，这位 Tracy 女士，因为她在加州的州议会，他们正在进行一个就是在推向这个草案，要立法，让这个更多的女性的金融行业的管理人员从业人员，他有更好的机会，能得到更多的工作的机会，所以他们在美国做这件事情是忽然被叫过去的，所以今天晚上没有办法来，非常的遗憾。但是他有问题的，但是大家有问题的话也可以转给我们，然后我们可以转给 Tracy， 让他为大家解答。然后呢，我们今天呢收到了，其实因为有非常多的投资者朋友在通过其他渠道跟我们联系了，发过来非常多的问题给 Paul 和 Shane， 然后呢，我们因为问题太多，没有办法，只好把它压缩成8个问题，然后希望涵盖了很多大家感兴趣的最新市场热门的地方。那么这些问题，如果大家要补充 ，once again 可以举手示意我们的工作人员把问题拿上来给我们后续讨论。Okay, so I'm going to open. We've got so many questions for you guys. So many questions. Too many actually to list, so I condensed them into 8 questions. Yeah. All right, let's get started. I think the first unhappy answer we're going to get is from. Well, it is from Paul. Okay. So first question is that Paul, you've got decades of experience working as project managers for various listed Australian firms, and including big four banks, miners, and some smaller ones specializing in different industries. The earnings season has just kick-started 2 weeks ago, so we're in the third week right now. Have you seen any noticeable results from the big players? So 我们第一个问题呢是给 Paul， 因为 Paul 是在很多上市的大型公司，像四大银行，然后还有这个矿业巨头，他都做过项目总监，所以他对这些企业的运营他非常的了解。那么我们想问他的是，现在呢正好是我们澳股的财报季第3个星期的财报季，所以我们想看一下 Paul 这边有没有发现最近公布财报的公司，它有没有很好的值得我们去关注的地方。Back to Paul.
Look, reporting season, and especially when it comes to the banks, it's a bit of a misnomer because banks in Australia report across the whole calendar year. We've got some that report in March quarter, some that just reported, and the West banks and most of this world, they're going to be towards October, November. But so far, I think banking-wise, no surprises. Both Macquarie and Commonwealth came up with very, very healthy results. To some extent driven by the rising interest rates. So you know the rising interest rates always give opportunity to the banks to increase the net interest margin, what they charge to make a living. How is that going to go later on in the season? I wouldn't be betting against the banks at this point.
Okay, fair enough.
I think banks will be showing very healthy returns. From my perspective, looking at it in a sort of bit of a longer lens on this, it would be worthwhile keeping an eye on what will be happening in terms of banks' customers base moving from low fixed interest rates that they had from. And let's face it, major Australian banks, 60% of their book is in mortgages. So mortgages are very important for our banks. So as the customers are moving from the low fixed interest rates to a higher fixed interest rate or floating rate, it will be interesting to see how will it translate to distressed loans and hardships and whatnot, and what will it mean in terms of impairment positions. But for now, I think banks are looking very healthy in Australia. As to Australian miners, again, I'm looking at it and thinking, one will have to be very brave to bet against them because coal is in high demand, gas is in high demand, all the minerals in high demand, and I think Australia is running a very efficient and a very world-class extraction business. One of the leading lights, although it's not a publicly traded company, it's a private company, but Hancock Prospecting, you might have heard of this.
Yeah, Hancock Prospecting.
They are, if not the most and probably second or third most advanced mine in the world for iron ore extraction. So our miners have got a very valuable ore body, and they can extract it at low cost. And for as long as there's demand, there will be money flowing to Australia.
Wonderful. So I just quickly summarize what Paul said. Paul 说，对于我们的第一个问题是，澳洲的财报季现在正在进行呢。他关注到的这个四大银行，那么因为四大银行它的财报是不是同一个时间公布的？有些在早些时候，然后现在我们公布的是CBA Commonwealth Bank of Australia， 还有 Macquarie，and 所以不是很好去对比。但是现在来说的话，因为在今年底还有明年初会有很多当时疫情之下固定锁定利率的这个贷款者，他们的利率会到期。固定利率到期之后就会变成浮动利率，那么这对于银行来说，他们的利润空间就会增加很多。我们说固定利率可能2%、2%点几，现在是6%左右，所以会有很多的利润空间给到银行这边去。所以他的个人观点是不要去做空银行，这是他个人的观点。然后第二点呢，我们说到这个澳洲的矿业呢，澳洲的矿业也是全世界应该是利润率最高的这个矿石生意的，包括像 Hancock Prospecting， 这个应该是 Gina Ryan 好。他们的这整个行业，那么现在虽然可能在这个全球经济放缓的情况下的这个矿业可能受到一定的这个迎风有点阻力，但是长期来看，矿业可能受到一定的。It's a private. Okay, cool. But do you think that with the global growth slowing down, it's sort of creating a headwind for the miners in the short term?
Look, the way I look at it, for as long as there's demand, and what can upset the demand? potential international instability, and we have a little bit of it. Potential international. But the major markets, the Asian market, for example, for our coal, for our iron ore, for our agricultural products, it's still going fine. Cool. So for as long as we're not starting sort of shooting at each other, we should be fine.
Yes. Those agricultural products， 这 Paul 的意见呢是现在除了矿业以外，还有就是即便在全球经济减速的环境下呢，我们还看到澳洲的农业，还有这个其他的矿石，比如说这个coal，what's coal again？煤矿，还有天然气，澳洲天然气都是有很大的潜力，因为这是非常刚需。澳洲30%以上的电力其实都是靠这个煤矿在 power up。30%以上的电力。That's yep. So moving on to the next one for Shane. Okay, Shane. So second one for you. You've been working very closely with many financial technology companies in the past. I've noticed that artificial intelligence has dominated the tech space this year with the launch of ChatGPT from OpenAI, Bard from Google, Bing from Microsoft, and so on. What do you think are some of the driving forces behind this? Bing from Microsoft, and so on.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So,
这第二个问题问的是 Shane 呢，就是我们今年看到了人工智能的这个浪潮是非常的显著，包括昨天晚上前天晚上英伟达这个最大的显示芯片制造商，它已经加入了1亿美元的股价，今年上涨了220%以上。那么我想问一下 Shane， 他因为一直在金融科技公司工作，在纽约也工作过，想听一下他对于这一次的这个人工智能浪潮，他有什么样的看法？给我还是。
Well, thanks for that, Glenn. Yeah, so I think there are two main dimensions that are driving AI, one macro, one micro. I think on the macro side, we really have to table set and understand, I guess, what's happened in the last 10 years and even more recently in the last year. So if you look at tech developments, we've seen things like AR, VR, crypto, Web3, all that kind of stuff. It's ultimately been quite disappointing for investors, both in terms of returns, and we've never really seen any big consumer products that can reach mass adoption, right? So there's been this disappointment in the tech hype cycle. AI, on the other hand, I think is a very tangible thing that both investors and consumers can see. They can kind of cling to it. And we've already seen big demand in things like ChatGPT. It had like 100 million users in a very short space of time. I think the other important thing we have to understand from a macro perspective is in 22, stock markets across the board came off very heavily. Tech was down 30%, S&P 500 was down 20%. And in general, investors need somewhere to put their capital. We saw private markets, they had $3.7 trillion of dry powder. That's uninvested capital at the end of 22, coming in at 23, which really lays the foundation for what we've seen in 23 of tech essentially just going ballistic. The NASDAQ is up something like 37% year to date, and we have specific companies within NASDAQ, like NVIDIA, like Meta, like Tesla, that have risen between 100 to 200+%. So they've essentially gone ballistic. On the micro side, we have another, I guess, important factor at play that economies across the globe, they've slowed down, right? So companies are looking to improve business fundamentals any way they can. AI, I guess, operates on this in three dimensions. One is efficiency. These companies view AI as a way of increasing efficiency from their workers. An engineer or a marketer can do their job more effectively if they use AI tools. We're already seeing that play out, even very early in the cycle. Investors, I feel, are projecting forward of how effective these tools could be and how much efficiency gains we could see companies at a global scale achieve. And I guess as a corollary of that, we're seeing companies really go hard on cost reductions. 2022 was a year really dominated by cuts, especially in the tech space. And I think these technology companies are eyeing these cuts even further if their employees can be more efficient. And then the third dimension really is just new revenue opportunities that simply didn't exist before, right? AI is opening up new businesses. We're seeing capital flood into the space. And as a very basic example, just take Microsoft, one of the largest companies in the world. They've turned on the profitability for their AI Copilot product, $30 a month. They already have a massive install base at an enterprise level. So these companies are pulling these levers as markets kind of get back into gear in 2023, like I said, that we've already seen. So I would say those are the two key drivers behind AI. Glenn?
Thank you so much, Shane. So Shane 对于我们今年的这个 AI 人工智能的热潮呢，它有两个 观点。第一个就是说，我们去年整年纳斯达克股指涨得是非常好的，因为去年的这个加息环境并没有现在的影响这么大了，美联储加息。那么到了今年呢，在去年底的时候，这个私有投资者，就是他没有去二级市场、公开市场去购买股票的投资者，手上一共有3.7万亿美元左右的资金在库存着，所以这些资金是在等一些很好的机会。那这机会，比如说就是我们今天看到英伟达这样的龙头企业带动起了芯片产业graphic processor GPU 带起来的。那么这个资金入场之后带来的效果是非常明显的。今年纳斯达克已经上涨40%-50%，然后英伟达的话已经上涨220%以上。所以在这样的环境下，我们看到资金是有目的的在等待的入场的，这个带来的第一个就是我们的第一个这个因素。那么第二个因素的话，就是我们看到AI 的技术来说，我们看到 ChatGPT 它是可以大家老百姓看得见摸得着的，比如他想偷懒不想写稿子的，啪啪啪打进去 ，ChatGPT 帮我写篇稿，它就跳出来了。很多人用这个偷懒，就很多人能给接触得到。那么它在刚刚上市不久之后就会。ซึ่ง超过了数亿的用户在里边，而不像之前我们说，什么 AR、VR 的眼镜戴头上可能眩晕是吧？用起来也不方便，但老百姓有很有距离感。那科技很遥远，但这个 AI 是非常接近的东西，所以我们看今年非常强大的这个AI 的浪潮就诞生了。Thank you very much, Shane. Another question for you regarding AI and tech. One difference we've noticed between the current AI wave and the metaverse hype from 2021 is that the Meta had this great idea and lots of ambition, but the lacks hardware and the infrastructure to really power this idea up. So with the current AI wave, though, I think markets are showing a lot more confidence. For example, like we just said, Nvidia's up by 220% this year and joined the $1 trillion club. Do you think there's even more upside to Nvidia in the longer run?
Yeah, that's a great question, Glenn. I'll probably answer in 3 parts, and maybe we can translate.
Okay. Do you mind if I just translate first? 那么第二个问题就是，既然英伟达这么热这个芯片制造商这么热，那么Shane的作为金融科技公司的一位老司机，他怎么去看这个问题？他觉得还有更多的上涨空间吗？我们是否可以去继续关注英伟达，或者说有其他的同行的相对估值比较低的美股科技股可以让我们去关注 ？Back to you, Shane.
Thanks for that, Glenn. Yeah, so I'll maybe answer this question in 3 parts because I think there's quite a lot to unpack, and I know a lot of investors are really following the video closely lately from the gains and just from the interest in the company and AI. So starting off, I think it's important to note that NVIDIA reported their results yesterday. They were really, really strong results, not to overhype them. So just to table set there, NVIDIA reported revenue of $13.5 billion. That was already ahead of their raised expectations of $11.2 billion, so they've already come in ahead of expectations that they themselves already raised. 10.3 billion of that was in data center revenue, so related to AI. So we're really seeing this AI hype play out in real terms for these companies. While we're maybe not seeing it in other big techs, it's definitely showing up in NVIDIA's earnings reports already. And I think the biggest thing for the market was a guide of 16 billion in revenue for Q3, right? So they've not only raised their guidance from the last quarter, but they've raised it again, suggesting that they expect this demand for these AI products to continue for some time. We saw the gross margins increase 25% to 71%, and they booked profits of 16.1 billion. I guess it's just important to understand that context, and the reason I was reading it outright is because NVIDIA is growing very quickly. And the main consideration that investors are probably grappling with right now is NVIDIA overvalued? How much should I pay for this growth? How much is too much of a price to pay? I think it's really important to contextualize this against other like large cap technology stocks. I just have the stats here, right? So Tesla is trading at a forwards earning of 68, Amazon 61, and Snow at 303.
That's PE, isn't it?
Yeah, PE. So by those metrics, NVIDIA is actually growing faster and trading at a slight discount, right? Maybe you could summarize that, Glenn?
Sorry?
Do you want to summarize that? And I'll go on to
No,
that.
cool.
I'll keep going. Okay, so it may be trading at a slight discount to its big tech peers, but I think it's also important to contextualize this against like broader technology waves. And the thing I always come back to is Cisco in the early 2000s. So the reason that NVIDIA is so highly valued right now by the market is because investors are saying, look, we have this AI revolution coming. NVIDIA is going to be the pick and shovel infrastructure play, whatever you want to call it. It's going to provide the chips that actually are behind all these AI processes, behind the training, behind the implementation. The problem is, for investing, price may be what you pay, but value is what you get. You look back to the early 2000s when Cisco was considered a similarly dominant company, right? At its peak in March 2000, Cisco had a market cap of 500 billion, was trading at a similarly heady valuation. I think it was something like 31 times sales, right? And they had all these future expectations for Cisco. Eventually Cisco would crash. I'm sure as we're all aware of the dot-com bubble, it would crash. And between something like 2005 to 2020, Cisco would grow its revenue 4 times over, but its share price would collapse 50%. And I think the reason I bring up the Cisco example is because you can have a company that may be envisioned to be the most important company for that industry, but a company's fundamentals often don't necessarily match its valuation. And we've never seen Cisco return to the heights that it did during that dot-com crash, which leads to my last point, right, which is about who will actually win this AI revolution, this AI arms race. And I think it's a really interesting question and probably structurally different than a lot of other technology considerations we've had in the past. I think in one way that there's 3 dimensions here, right? The AI industry is very expensive. These chips are very expensive. You can't just spin up a piece of code in your dorm room. There's no kind of Facebook or Alphabet equivalent in the AI space. You simply can't do that. Also the talent, the engineers, the AI experts behind these, very expensive, and there's not many of them. So there's not just a lot of computer science graduates sitting around. And then on the last point, it's a very competitive market. As we already said, there's a lot of dry powder on the side. All these companies are rushing to invest or participate in the AI space, from Apple to Nvidia to Microsoft, OpenAI to Facebook to Tesla to some degree, Meta, sorry. So it's going to be highly competitive and you're going to need operating excellence to really win in this market. And that's why I think it wouldn't be surprising that if we saw big tech really be the leader here. Again, with the Cisco example, that doesn't mean that the share prices will accrue to shareholders. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Shane. 所以第二个问题，我们的这个除了英伟达的股票以外，有没有别的美股的科技股可以关注？那么 Shane 的观点是认为，像在10几年前，美国还有一家通信器材的制造公司叫 Cisco， 这些电话机办公室用品。那 Cisco 当时股价也是非常高，因为是在2000年的科技股泡沫的时候起来的。那在后期，它的股价就开始往下掉，然后呢就 crash 了。然后虽然后期公司的这个EPS 这个数据都跟上来了，营收都跟上来了，但是股价一直没有恢复到前高。那么Shane的意思就是说，他认为在这个估值过高，因为英伟达现在估值应该是最高的，所有的科技股里边，它估值过高，它如果跌下来之后，它的这个会有外溢的效果。那么它资金撤出来之后，可能会去第2家、第3家、第4家。我们说的 AMD， 我们说英特尔，我们说 Qualcomm， 我们说这些很多 Broadcom， 很多美股它都是可以去有这个 AI 的潜力的，所以各位也可以去关注这些公司。它的估值相对较低，所以在交易起来的时候，相对的这个波动性和潜在的风险会要低很多。这是第二个问题。Thank you, Shane. Sorry. 4th question, back to you, Paul. So coming back to Australia, we saw that Australia and China improving our trade relationship this year. Tariff has been lifted on Australian timber, barley, and there's talks about lifting it on wine next. So while agriculture and consumer discretionary companies have welcomed the results, do you think the Australian dollar is benefiting from this improvement? 第4个问题问保罗是我们今天看到中澳关系在贸易方面有很大的进展啊。那么像这个维州的木材，然后我们看到不久前的这个大麦，澳洲大麦的这个关税也被这个反倾销关税也被取消了。那么接下来我们还有听到说，下一个可能是澳洲的红酒。那么在这样的环境下，就说整体的大宗我们的矿石，我们的煤矿这可能还没有太恢复起来，但是在这个农业和消费者的板块里面就已经有起色。那么我们想问 Paul 的是，在这样的环境下，澳元是不是有受到上行的动力的助推 ？Back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Glenn. Well, first of all, I'm glad to see that reason is slowly returning to China, Australia, bilateral relations to the benefit of Chinese consumers and Australian producers. So, to what extent will it have a stabilizing effect on our currency? Interesting question, because after all, there was no embargo on coal, there was no embargo on iron ore, so there was no embargo on gas. And these are the big ticket items, okay? But, everything helps. And I'm not saying, keep the embargoes. No, by all means, don't misunderstand. I would like to see all those embargoes disappear. Okay, what I think would benefit our currency is not so much where it is in relation to the US dollar or where it is in relation to euro. It's more of its stability. So in other words, take the volatility out of the currency. I mean, it's great for the currency traders, you know, but it's not so good for the people who use the currency to actually exchange goods. So all those moves towards sort of normalization or return to the normalized relations, you think should help, right? So certainly Australia welcomes that. That's that. But interestingly enough, when we talk about strength of currency, I think it's important to understand that whilst Australian dollar at the moment, our trade-weighted index is improving, which is great, we are still way off to where we were about 10, 15 years ago. Okay, so we still have got a little bit of mountain to climb to get back to the levels where we were, 2013, 2015. Yeah. But hope springs eternal.
Cool. Thank you very much, Paul. 我们说的这个问题的 Paul 的意见是说，这个澳元的驱动它的因素肯定是在于一些更大的商品上，比如说原油啊，我们没有原油，澳洲没有原油的，很少出口给新几内亚。然后我们有天然气，我们也很少出口出去，所以像这样的大 big ticket items， 它会驱动这个汇市货币的这个上行，这是显然的。但是我们没有。那么像这个大麦啊，包括还有哪怕红酒、复苏，还有这个刚才说的这个木材，它都是一些小的商品，价值比较低的商品，所以对于澳元的上行的推动的动能是非常的有限的。但是在中澳关系的稳步的这个stabilization 的情况下呢，我们可以看到，它对于汇市的稳定程度或者汇率的，就可以我们做交易者，我们可以说是区间震荡的机会会多一点，它不会特别大，冲上去或者砸下来，它可能会区间震荡机会多一些。那么用指标就可以 RSI， 我们用 Bollinger Band 这些技术就可以用起来，这是 Paul 的意思。Thank you, Paul. Next question. Coming back to Shane again. On the other hand, Shane, the U.S.-China tech race have continued to escalate. So in fact, 2 weeks ago, the White House just issued another executive order to further restrict the exports of critical technology. Do you see these political factors, potentially sabotage the tech hype? And if so, what are some good strategies to limit the downside exposure? 所以我们这个第5个问题问 Shane， 就是我们看到现在虽然中澳关系有很明显的缓和，但是中美关系在这个科技竞赛方面还是这个非常的这个激烈哈。那么在2周前，白宫又再次限制了对华的这些关键科技的出口。那么在这样的一种情况下，有这个政治不确定性的因素的前提下，会不会把我们现在的科技股的这个热浪、这个热潮 AI 的热潮把它热情浇灭呢？如果有这样的情况，我们应该用什么样的市场去对冲我们的风险，或者打开一些新的渠道呢？ Back to you, Shane.
That's another great question, Glenn. I think my short answer is no. I don't think the volatility between China and US is going to sabotage the tech hype.
Nice.
I've read the executive order and it mainly seems concerned with safety and security related to AI and specifically the misuse of it by technology companies. I think the US administration is much more wary of how technology companies in general use and in particular misuse data. We saw Facebook with many data breaches over the years, so I think there's much more sensitivities around that. But in terms of the AI hype and in terms of specifically NVIDIA, because they're very much leading the AI hype right now, I would say the bill doesn't really affect that. So as I understand it, right, the method that the US put in place was to stop the import of very powerful AI chips into China, specifically in regards to the bandwidth of these chips. NVIDIA's actually already got around this by inputting slightly slower chips into China, and we recently saw a large order from the big Chinese technology companies Baidu, Alibaba, ByteDance, of these slightly less powerful chips, but they can still be used for this AI training and deployment. What this means is that if these Chinese companies are using these chips, they will progress slightly slower and it will be more cost intensive for them, but they still can make progress. But what I really think people need to pay attention to when it comes to this hype, it's all about a slowdown in demand or interest of these AI companies. I don't think geopolitics is going to derail it. And my view in particular would be that these geopolitical events are very hard to time and very hard to trade. You can definitely make good trades off them if you time it correctly, but I would say that's almost difficult or impossible. And just one more point I want to make. Even though it's very hard to time that, the market is currently very sensitive to like these geopolitical uncertainties. I think the best example of that is TSMC, which is the actual producer of these AI chips that they sell to NVIDIA. While we've talked about the valuation of NVIDIA and its share price performance being very high, TSMC, which is located in Taiwan, is actually trading at a very low multiple. Its share price hasn't moved that much this year. So investors are very concerned about this and they are very sensitive to this information. And I think they're going to act accordingly based on what we're seeing out of the White House and out of China.
Beautiful, thank you, Shane. 对于就是中美的科技竞赛会不会影响现在的科技热潮呢？Shane的答案很简单，干脆是他觉得不会，他觉得不会。为什么呢？因为这个他读了一下白宫发的这个行政令，它其实没有限制。它所限制的关键的所谓的关键技术，并不影响 AI 的领域，因为 AI 它其实是相对比较简单的科技输出的，所以在这个方面他认为不会影响。但是我想补充一点，就是如果在交易的时候，如果遇到比较大的波动性，像地缘政治，很显然市场情绪是会受影响的。那这样情况下，我们如果还是想看多科技股，我们可以去看纳斯达克股指。那么这整个股指纳斯100的话，它是包括了100只科技股，所以它里面不仅仅是 AI 的科技股，它还有很多各式各样的科技股。那么如果因为这个行政令限制到了 AI 技术的出口，那我们还有别的很多科技在里边，所以整一个相当于一个篮子一样的投资的一个产品，在这样的环境里面，相对你的波动性会减少啊。然后如果在整体大环境上行的过程中，比如现在美联储已经加息，应该是已经到头了，就再多一次应该就到头了。在这样的环境下，利率和纳斯达克股指它是一个很高的负相关关系。如果如果利率到头了，那么市场可以开始更多的计价，认为科技股会有更多的上涨空间，就可能带来新一轮的上涨。所以这个不喜欢交易个股的、懒得去看个股的朋友们，也可以去看一下纳斯100、纳斯达克股指。然后想看个股的朋友呢，可以看一下刚刚Shane提到的英伟达 NVIDIA，可以看一下 AMD。可以看一下 Qualcomm， 可以看一下英特尔，有一系列的这样的。如果您这个想的话，细聊这些的话，可以到我们周围的工作人员，他们可以给您提供这些具体的数据。好 ，Thank you, Shane. I think the next one is bouncing back to Paul. Right, it is you. Okay. So speaking of trade and diplomatic relations, I do feel like there are a lot of driving forces behind the falling Australian dollar. It seems traders are mostly concerned with central bank policies. We saw the RBA holding their rates steady twice in a row. Do you think the Australian dollar is facing more downside pressure? 我们第六个问题是给 Paul， 就是现在我们看到澳元非常的疲软哈，今年初大概3月份的时候是7毛1对美元，现在是6毛3、6毛4，昨天非常低。那么想问一下 Paul， 虽然中澳关系稳定性已经增加了，但是市场更关注的重点在于澳联储的政策方向。那么澳联储在上2次的加息决议上都选择了没有再加息，所以利息高肯定对这个汇市它是当地的货币率它是带来动力的。那么2次都没有再加息，是不是代表未来就不再加息？那么这样相对来说，是不是澳元会有更大的下行空间 ？Back to you, sir.
I've misplaced my crystal ball, so. But look,
I can lend you mine.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's currency pricing, there's interest rate differentials, right? So, where are our interest rates and where is our inflation in comparison to our major trading partners? Like if you look at inflation, for example, we currently with about 6%.
Yes, 5%.
Our major trading partners, US is roughly 3.2. Europe is closest to us, about 5.5. Japan, I think, is about 2.5. Yep. So our inflation is still markedly higher. Our interest rates have not gone that high yet. Okay. Sure. So in real terms, in my view, our currency potentially could be viewed as potentially devalued. However, if our inflation will start coming down off the ball as it has, I mean, last quarter was 7, now it's 6, so it's on the right trajectory. Unless we've got some sort of blowout, things are looking okay in my view, and that should provide some level of floor for Aussie dollar. However,
the two things that worry me when I look at all this,
in Australian context is our labor costs
Yeah.
and our energy costs.
Right.
We have got quite vigorous trade unions in Australia who drive a very hard bargain,
Yep.
which increases the labor costs. And this is Paul Sokolowski view, so you don't have to listen and follow me. But I think what's happening to our energy market and our energy costs is nothing short of sabotage. We have experienced massive growth in costs of energy. I don't know about you, but I've recently received the bill that my price of electricity is going up by 30%. In a country that is endowed with all sorts of energy sources, gas, oil, coal, uranium, you name it. Okay, our energy prices are going up, and not by a couple of percentage points. So when you look at fundamental costs in a business model, labor and energy, right? And those two things are not looking good at the moment. So I worry. So that worries me. And if that continues, that may result potentially in an inflation rebound. Sooner or later, the central bank or reserve bank is going to have to act on this. And if inflation is not coming down, the only way to stop it from us basically overheating the economy or Aussie dollar becoming toilet paper, is they're going to have to raise rates. Now, I hope this is a doomsday scenario that's never going to come to pass, right? So I hope things are going to go on the right trajectory. I hope that our political leaders are going to eventually wake up and understand that there's no point sabotaging our energy market, and because whilst I can lift my house and move, but that aluminium smelter or that factory might say, well, forget about it. I'm going to go to a jurisdiction that actually has got much lower and more stable prices. So watch this space. Watch the energy prices like hawks, because that is a key input into the overall cost structure.
Thank you so much.
And the currency.
Yes, well, just another point that the toilet paper is probably too rough. It's plastic, right? 这 Paul 的意见就是说，对于现在的这个澳洲的我们澳元会不会有上升的空间啊？他认为呢，就是现在上升空间还是有。为什么？两个原因。第一，澳洲通胀还是比其他国家高很多。我们看到美国现在2.97%、3%，日本2.5%左右，日本是慢慢的在 build up，欧盟也是非常高，所以比起澳洲是要说低很多。那么我们的利率呢是比他们要低很多的。那么澳洲通胀下不来还有两个最关键的原因，他说第一个是能源价格，第二是人工成本价格。那么能源价格，我们看到大家包括他说的感觉收到一封信，打开里边电费账单贵了30%，那这个电费我们大家都在承受啊，电费然后煤气费都是在涨价的，然后第二个人工成本也是非常高。那么电费、能源账单还有这个人工成本，它都是要被统计到通货膨胀里的，所以通货膨胀它不会在短期这么快的下来，除非非常意外的情况。所以在这样的环境下，澳联储可能不得不继续去加息，也就为澳元的上升和反弹提供了一定的空间和机会。这是Paul的意见，谢谢他。然后呢，我们的倒数第二个问题second last question for you.
Go for it.
Yeah, okay, fire away. So coming back to the Australian share market, we've talked enough about the forex now. To the share market now, inflation, well, it has peaked, right? It's probably not going down that quickly. Fingers crossed, but hoping it has peaked. Would that give our share market some tailwind? 就是我们说现在澳洲通胀虽然没有降到美国那么低的程度，但是应该已经是触顶了，对吧？已经到顶那个往下走了。那么在这样的环境下，低通胀低利率的预期对澳洲股市是一个好的消息。那么我们看一下 Paul 有没有和他的想法，跟我们分享一下。There we go. So.
It goes back to the answer that I kind of gave you before. If we continue on the downward trajectory and we'll catch up with our major trading partners, then, things are looking good. So that should be nice. If we have hiccups on the way, that's where the problem's going. That's where the problem's going to occur. That naturally translates itself to the currency cost. And as we say, notwithstanding the volatility, and if we look at the price of Aussie, is it good or is it bad? Well, it depends which side you trade, right?
Yep. So, what do you think about the utility companies, utility sectors? Do you think they'll
It's not my favorite.
Not your favorite?
Well, there is one.
Fair enough.
That's personal view, because I think they are contributing to the problem that we have. They have overinvested in renewables, in my view. it was done with a view to get on a public subsidy teat, and I think these are all motivations. You know, so but then again, hey, look, you know, if you look at AGL, they're making more money than sense. You know, thanks to all of us. You know, those 30% price rises. But so utilities, in my view, I can't really comment.
Fair enough.
But in terms of the Aussie dollar, you know, like if Aussie dollar gets cheaper, it's fantastic news for the exporters, right?
Exactly.
Not so good for the importers. So when we buy stuff, you know, we buy mobile phones, or cars, or furniture, you know, so that means that you know, cheaper Aussie dollar impacts our quality of life.
Thank you so much, Paul. So, 那么对于这个我们刚才说，这个澳洲通胀已经触顶开始往下降的这个过程，是否会对我们澳洲股市带来一些动力呢？他的想法是会有动力啊。那特别在哪些？我问他就说，包括这个我们说公用事业板块，就是这个煤气啊，这个电力公司啊，这些板块大家可以查到啊 ，utility sector ASX 200上可以看到。那么这些公司，他认为这家伙是坏蛋，为什么？因为他们是引起这个问题的人啊，比如说 AGL 它的利润已经涨了很多 ，AGL 也是澳股，大家可以去交易的。像 AGL 啊，很多这个能源公司，它其实是在提供啊，为通胀来说，它在创造问题，但是对于投资者来说，它带来的利润是去年增加了30%左右，非常高的利润率。所以这是Paul对于我们这个通胀，还有能源板块，还有这个公用事业板块的一些看法。然后接下来是我们的最后一个问题，各位不要忘记，如果有问题可以举手示意周围的工作人员把问题交给他们。Last questions for you, Shane. So the Federal Reserve is currently holding their annual meeting in Kansas City in Jackson Hole Symposium. So volatility has increased across currency markets, and the tech stocks are showing their sensitivity again. So for investors who are less aggressive, do you see any opportunities outside of the tech space? 那问题是，因为现在我们此时此刻正是美联储年会在召开的时候，在 Kansas City 召开。那么美联储一开会，市场就会跟着抖。那么现在我们看到汇市的美元的波动性已经开始迅速的上升了。那么汇率的变化、利率的变化，对于科技股影响是非常大的。所以我们想问一下 Shane， 除了科技股以外，如果大家不想去做科技股，有没有别的去交易的渠道或者说是市场？
Thanks for your question, Glenn. I guess to just table set this question as well, I would start by saying that central bankers and economists are notoriously bad at predicting what's going to happen on the macro side. I think I always come back to the US summer of 21, when we had the CPI print that went up quite a bit from used cars, and we had Fed Chair Jerome Powell say inflation is transitory. He was saying that for around 6 months until inflation was indeed not transitory. We had massive prints throughout 2022, and it's only now, after aggressive hiking cycles, that we've got that down. So I think the reason I mentioned that is we can expect rates to be higher for longer, and we can also expect inflation to be higher for longer. It most likely won't be at the peaks it was in 22, but now I think we're operating in an environment where companies have to deal and grapple with these real-world economies that they haven't been in the last 10 years through the zero interest rate policies of these central banks around the world. And I bring that up as well because it's important to think of it in terms of you're looking to achieve a return in excess of the inflation rate, right? So I don't necessarily think of these things, Glenn, in terms of technology versus non-technology companies. In a way, I would argue that every company is a technology company in the sense that all companies make use of technology to varying degrees. Whether a Lowe's can achieve the same gross margin than a SaaS business, that definitely differs, but all companies leverage technologies. The way I like to think of it rather is in terms of styles and how those styles fluctuate in and out of favor. The three that I would focus on is value investing. That was really popular in the early 2000s. Growth and momentum investing, which was really popular in the last decade. The big tech trade was the trade that everyone was in. It was seemingly the trade that could not miss. And then I guess the other style that I like to think about it is quality investing, which is kind of a blend of all those two, and really looks at companies that have a consistent history of earnings, paying dividends, low debt, and they have dominant market positions. They're boring companies that consistently perform over time and reward their shareholders. So if I was looking outside of tech, I would be looking at companies like that. And I think the reason I say that is because often we get caught up in the flashy names like Apple, Amazon. But if you look elsewhere, you'll see that some of the best performing companies over the last 20, 40, 50 years, They're not technology companies. They're things like Altria, a tobacco company, or Monster Energy drinks that's up something like 75,000% in the last 20 years. So I think we can definitely broaden our aperture away from tech. And I think that's potentially important for us to think about right now, because when you look at the NASDAQ 100, while it's up significantly year to date, those gains are very concentrated in a select few number of names that arguably could be overvalued, or they at least have failed valuations. So I would think about this in terms of style opposed to just sector.
Thank you very much, Shane.
Also, I suppose it depends, what's your poison, like if you really want to trade a lot, if you want to really catch those opportunities, you have to be more focused in terms of specifics.
Yep.
If your investment horizon is, you're a patient investor, index. Even if there are small ripples in the way, but 5, 10, 15 years, so far, you would be ahead.
No, I would definitely agree with you there, Paul. I mean, I think it was Warren Buffett who famously made $1 million bet with any hedge fund manager in the world if they could outperform the S&P 500. Right. And they lost because it's been the best performing benchmark of the last 100 years. Obviously, we don't know how it's going to perform in the next 100 years, and you've had countries like Japan, which have had lost decades in their stock markets. But in general, I would say America is the heart of innovation. They continue to produce these companies that do extraordinary things. And I think that's why people like Warren Buffett are so obsessed with that country.
Beautiful, thank you so much. 最后一个问题的话是说这个，两位讨论太激烈了，我都忘记问题是什么。就是说现在美联储的年会导致的这个汇市和股市的波动开始激增，那么在科技股以外有没有别的可以去投资的地方呢？那么Shane的观点是去投资那些已经比较成熟的公司，比如说我们看到 Apple、Amazon 这些大的公司在我们这里都是可以去交易的。其次的话，像 Paul 说了一点，就是可以去投资股指啊，因为他举的例子是 Warren Buffett 巴菲特股神巴菲特曾和华尔街打过鼓，说如果有人能跑赢。你们这些基金经理谁能跑赢这个标普500指数的话，我给你多少钱？我没听出具体多少钱，没听见。但是从来没有人赢过，所以最简单的办法，标普500指数，这是一个相对来说应该是最安全的一个投资标的。那么标普500，然后你其他一些比较老牌，他说的是 boring companies， 就是没有特别爆发力的，但是可能是一直都在有不断的成熟的有营收，然后的利润稳健，然后它的这个股价是稳定上行的这样的公司。Okay, well, I think that sums up all the questions tonight, and this is 45 minutes passed really quickly, and certainly has. And 希望各位在这个过去的非常迅速就过去的45分钟内，收获到了自己想听的知识。然后如果有更多的问题啊，像我们说的周围，像这边客户朋友们有问题，可以拿给我们的工作人员，然后请大家转交给 Paul 和 Shane。然后呢，这就是我们今天晚上的。所有的峰会的内容，那么在接下来的这个时间里，就是各位的社交和喝一些饮料的时间，然后有问题可以。我们还有提问，好多问题啊。Sorry, guys, you can't go. We've got so many questions.
We were just wondering.
You can't go.
Oh, we have questions.
Sit back. We've got so many questions. Okay, so, Jesus, that's a lot. My God. I have to pick. I like the yellow ones, so I'll go with the yellow ones first. They're shorter. So Brandon is asking, how long do you think this interest rate environment will last? Brandon, can I see where you're? Brandon, do you mean Australia or US? Here, Australia? The global interest outlook globally? Australia.
Sure.
Hearing's bad. So who do you want to speak to? Shane, Paul? Paul? Interest environment.
Thank you for the question, Brandon. Look, again, we need to keep an eye on our energy costs and our labor costs. If we can keep them in check, demand is moderate, and you would like to think that it should be, given the fact that those increased interest rates are impacting household incomes. They have to spend more to service loans. The inflation should be coming. The inflation, in my view, should be coming down, barring any sort of unforeseen events. Some sort of another blowout in terms of energy issues, or effectively trade unions losing any modicum of sense and basically driving wage demands beyond sort of bounds of reason. In a way, how long will it take? Gosh, if I knew. But I mean, if you look at trajectory, I think again, assuming best case scenario, I think over the next 12 months we will be seeing sort of things slowly returning and to normalcy. And remember that RBA's objective is to have our inflation rate anywhere to like between 2 to 3%. Right? That's a kind of benign inflation. Sorry, benign inflation. Inflation, not interest rate. Inflation rate between 2 to 3%. So from 7 to 6, hopefully on the way down to this 2 to 3 band. I reckon 12 months, barring some unforeseen events.
And I'll just jump in there as well, right? Like, if you look at US, and Australia really does piggyback off the US in terms of markets and central bank decisions. I think their 10-year is currently trading at like 4.2, which does suggest that rates will be higher for longer and much higher than they were in the last decade. That's currently what traders are saying they expect. Again, this is why I brought up the fact that central banks and economists and investors though can be very wrong. What that actually turns out to be could be very different than what people are betting on. But that's the current kind of long-term thinking.
Which means that nobody knows.
Thank you guys so much. I think it's similar to the questions we've asked before, the interest rate outlook. I think it's clear. I think you got your answer, Brandon. Thank you very much. I've got too many questions. 问题很多，所以我需要挑一下哈，不好意思。这个
Just pick them.
Well, this one's about Japan dumping the waste in the ocean. Probably not this one. 有人问日本把核污水排到海里面，这个我就不解答了，这个可能跟金融关系不大。但是关注时事是非常棒的。Next one, let's see. Anybody into lithium? Mines, a little bit. Have a few words on that? Lithium, the outlook for lithium.
Look, I think it's going to be healthy because despite anything, if you look at renewables and energy storage as a supplementary source of energy, then lithium as one of the critical ingredients into battery production, demand for it should stay high. Okay, there's probably not enough lithium at the moment on the planet to go around to build the amount of batteries that sort of the glassy-eyed environmentalists would like us to do. But I think that for now, all the ingredients that go into batteries, so lithium, copper, nickel, cadmium, those rare earths, they're gonna have reasonable demand.
Beautiful. And Sheng,
yeah, just to add to that, I definitely agree that we will be demand in the future, and Australia has obviously got some of the largest hard rock lithium demands in the world. I think it's interesting though to look at a lot of these lithium companies in Australia, their operating profile is just simply not very good, right? It's dictated by this hyper volatile price of lithium, which has gone through a number of boom bust cycles in the last decade. So whether that actually translates to being able to effectively trade these companies is a completely different thing, which I would say is like the theme of the talk tonight, right? So I would just factor that in if you were looking to trade lithium miners in Australia. They've been historically very sensitive to the boom bust cycles of the lithium price.
Beautiful, Shane. Thank you. So can I ask?
Sort of in a way, when your local grocer or a delivery driver tells you, starts giving you theories about lithium, sell.
就刚我想问一下，问锂电池这位是锂矿是哪一位问的？可以举一下手吗？锂电池 ，OK， 可能比较害羞，不想说，没关系。或者说，如果当你们听到就是这个送快递的小哥哥的跟你说可以投资锂矿，那是时候开溜了，他是这样讲的。So nice one, the delivery driver. Yeah, he actually talked to me about Nvidia. So there we go. Next question about the Aussie dollar and the US dollar. Anybody?
Yours, mate.
No, I don't know.
Well, I'll take it.
Let it go and take it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
you don't need to read questions.
澳元对美元的走势哈，这个我觉得比较有意思，因为我们看到美元的加息周期已经 大概到顶了，我觉得可能就这一次或者再一次就到顶了。那么说交易外汇的时候，我们是有两个 currency， 对不对 ？AUD、USD first name second name currency。如果你要看它的强度的话，必须要两边的去看。如果第一个很厉害，第二个很弱，很简单往上涨；第一个很弱，第二个反过来的话呢就往下跌。所以现在我们看 AUD 和 USD 的时候，澳元和美元很明显就是哪个厉害，它就要往哪边走。那么澳元现在我们的通胀是比较高的，美元通胀已经比较低啊，所以在这样的环境下，两个央行去加息的步骤会出现步骤差。所以总体来说呢，澳元对美元应该还有一些空间去反弹的。现在来看，这是当然我个人的观点啊。现在来看，澳元是非常低，我们从71跌到了63，然后在技术分析方面，今天因为没有时间放这个图了，但是技术分析看到638左右是有一个支撑线，下一个在645左右，所以在638这地方已经开始反弹。那么现在我们看到，美联储正在开年会，所以现在如果有美联储要释放很鹰派的消息，应该就是在这2天说了。那如果这头过去了，澳元这边不出现意外，那么反弹的空间，我认为是会逐渐的出现的，这是澳元对美元的问题。All right, last question. You got more? My God. No, yeah? All right. Let's have it.
Engaged audience.
Look at that.
Thank you. Okay, cool. 2 more. You want to pick one? Sorry, it's in Chinese. I read it.
That's all right.
You can read Chinese?
You can read Mandarin.
Okay, cool. Right, so you want...
No.
Okay, you pick. You want that one? Okay. Okay, it's English, that one.
I'll read it for you. Is that all right? All right. Good. 2 of you gentlemen.
Yes,
That's
okay.
the question.
Moderator.
So, do you think U.S. use interest rate as a weapon to suck wealth from the world of China? How much larger can U.S. keep? How much larger can U.S. keep?
Can keep going. I guess can keep going.
So do you want me to restate the question again? So do you think U.S. use interest rate as a weapon to suck wealth from the world like China? And how much larger can U.S. keep going?
That's a good question. I can cover this one, I think. I would generally say no, right? US raising interest rates has very much hurt their businesses. It's hurt their equity markets. Whereas from what I understand, China has managed to keep its interest rates very low currently, and their economy is almost overtaking the US. If anything, I would say the US is concerned and potentially jealous about what China can achieve on an economic level. So I don't think they're using interest rates in that way, especially because it impacts so many parts of their economy, from housing to, like I said, equity markets, which do have real impacts on the economy.
The only thing is that I would add that it's kind of apples and oranges in a sense, because, Chinese currency is a regulated currency, whereas American currency, for what we would like to believe, is a floating currency, right? It's a currency that basically rises and falls on the caprice of the market. So, kind of comparing a regulated currency with an unregulated one, it's comparison could be difficult. But I do agree with you as well that Americans are not lifting, are not playing with the currency just to basically, instill some sort of global hegemony. They've got domestic problems with the inflation and with the demand, and that's what they're doing. So
Beautiful.
There's another problem that is corollary to this.
Yeah, okay.
And that's China and Saudi Arabia and Russia and BRICS.
Yep.
Basically saying, well, maybe we should go away from a US dollar as a trading currency and go to something else. That is a bigger risk to the United States than any of this inflation game.
That's a very good point, Paul, right? Like throughout history, there's always been a country that has the dominant country, that is the currency, that is the world standard. We had the British pound before that, and now we have the US. Is China the next dominant currency, or BRICS? It's hard to say, but it's very interesting. Nothing lasts forever, and this too shall pass.
Well, thank you so much. 所以我们最后这个问题是一位可能比较可爱的朋友写的，说这个二位有没有认为是美国在把利率武器化，然后呢在这个进行全球的这个就是挑事儿这个问题的？二位的观点是这个应该不会，因为什么呢？所以他们都说可能这个美国是担心自己的地位受到挑战，但是他们也觉得美国自己境内有很多的问题，通胀、失业率，因为我们知道旧金山 7万名无家可归的流浪汉在街上旧金山，10年前、20年前不是这样的。洛杉矶现在有2万名，都是这样，就在街上就有贩毒，就直接就开吸了。所以整体他们内部的问题也是非常明显。所以加息显然不是只是为了把美元武器化，它可能有带来一定的收益，但它绝对不是以这样的一个出发点去的。然后这就是我们今天的所有问题。我这还有几个问题没有回答的，因为我们时间关系哈。如果是您写的这个问题没有被点到的，然后您可以去过来直接和我们的嘉宾去对话。感谢大家。然后接下来就是我们的社交时间。然后再次感谢大家的时间。Thank you very much. This is the end of the forum session. Thank you. Yeah, that's all good to go. Yeah, fabulous guys. You did so well. It's going to work with this. Put this here. So good. Okay, I'll do.
Thank you so much. 那个手办是学成没有。再一次感谢所有就是来参与我们今天晚上的活动。很多问题可能没有办法从一个人解释到，但是我们现场的话呢，有包括这个工具。如果大家对这个交易或者是发布，甚至是有个别的产品有一些兴趣的话呢，也可以跟我们的这个客人和经理人来去进行进一步的沟通，好吗？谢谢大家。会员还有网络商会的会员，那么这些会员，如果您对我们的平台、我们的公司以及我们的产品感兴趣的话呢，其实也是可以跟您的这个会员。你好。